Lazy. Believe it or not, I don't think there's a whole lot of difference between the two of these plugins. Lazy.nvim seems to have much better performance and it has an awesome UI. But both of these offer is to go fairly straight init.lua. What you have to do is copy and paste a couple of think there's a whole lot of difference between the awesome UI, but both of these offer very similar features. They do lazy loading, they have some kind of performance enhancements, they obviously install packages, but it seems like the consensus these days is to go with lazy because it is lazy loading first. It seems to have better performance. Now, the installation process is fairly straightforward. What you have to do is copy and paste a couple of snippets into your init.lua file. Like this. If we look at this really quick, what we see here is we have a local variable called lazy path that's set to a certain path that it wants to look for on your file system. And if that does not exist, then what it does is it runs a git clone command through Vim and clones the repository that we are looking at right here. So essentially this little snippet just says, hey, does this thing exist on the system yet? If not, well, clone the repository and then we're good to go. Now that we have this snippet in place, what we're going to want to do is call the setup function for lazy underneath this snippet. This will actually load lazy for us. Now you can see here we have two variables that are currently undefined, plugin and ops. Both of these are Lua tuples, so we can just say local plugins is an empty tuple, and we can do the same for ops. There's probably a more clever way to declare these variables, but whatever. Now if we write that file and then source it, we now have the lazy command available to us in Neovim. If we type colon, capital L lazy, and hit enter, we see the lazy GUI. How cool is that? So now lazy is installed on our system and we're ready to install some packages. Now our configuration has some pretty terrible colors. So the first package I want you guys to install is a color scheme to make things look cool and hip. Now my favorite color scheme is something called Capuchin. It has amazing color defaults, it has an awesome palette, and personally I love it. It's really, really cool. I suggest you install the same, but you know what? There's a million out there, so look for whatever you like. In their repo, they have a Neovim link for installation, so we can go over here. Let's install it in Neovim, and I believe they even have a section for lazy. Yep, here it is. So now in Lazy, what we can do is we can add to our local plugins tuple in Lua this line right here. This is another tuple. It gives us a string that is the GitHub repository URL essentially for this plugin. It gives us a name, which I don't think is super necessary for us. And I'm pretty sure this sets the loading priority for lazy. So we can go to our local plugins tuple, create a new line in here, and just paste in what we've copied. So now lazy will include this plugin when it calls setup. So let's quit NVim, reload it. Let's load it at the file that we are actually editing. And you can see that lazy automatically detects that we have a new uninstalled package. So it installs it for us. So now I'm realizing this is actually Lazy's default color scheme. This happened because we reloaded Neovim with Lazy installed, and now it showed up with this new color scheme. This is not Capuchin. To enable Capuchin, we have to require the package and call the setup function. Most packages in Lua export a setup function that you need to call in your configuration. Essentially what that does is it'll import all of the functions and all the functionality for that package into the Neovim Lua runtime, so Neovim can then execute it. So let's do this for Capuchin. So underneath our setup, we can say require Capuchin and call setup. And then underneath that, we can use another Vim command function to set our color scheme to Capuchin. Now, if we quit and reload Neovim in the file that we were just looking at, our init.lua file, hey look, what an awesome looking color scheme. This configuration is already looking pretty sick. Let's keep going. So now let's cd into our config directory because I'm honestly getting pretty sick of having to type out this whole entire string every single time. And we can call nvim init.lua. Great. Now the next plugin that I think is essential for a great Neovim configuration is fuzzy finding your files and grepping throughout your project. we can call configuration.lua. Great. Now the next plugin that I think is this we're configuring at now. file. Hey look, one awesome looking color. Let's CD and string every single time, and we Neovim can. It's an amazing name of files, tons and tons done by one of the sexiest Neovim. Scroll down to the lazy.mvim section here. We can see that we want to add to our tuple another tuple, and then we have a dependencies tag here that is set to planary. So we make sure we install planary when we install telescope, and we want to add this tuple to our configuration. So let's do that. We go to our configuration where we have plugins. We want to add a comma after this plugin and then paste our extra tuple in here. Now we don't need any of this extra stuff. We can just do this based on what was given. Now Lazy will include telescope in its plugins. So if we close Neovim and reopen it, I believe it's going to install telescope. Yes, Lazy has automatically installed telescope and planary. Pretty cool. Lazy's kind of amazing. But we can't quite use telescope yet because we still have to initialize it. Now in the docs, it says you want to set a local variable called built-in to the required telescope.builtin function. Now what this is going to do is it's going to load up all of the stuff in the Lua file within the module telescope.builtin. So what we can do is we can do vim.keymap.set to control P built-in.find underscore files. This is a function in the built-in module for telescope, and it'll allow us to use fuzzy find to find files in our project. So let's quit out of this, reopen Neovim, and it was expecting a string and it got nothing. Of course, I spelled something wrong, which happens. Basically, I have JavaScript brain, and I thought that I needed to have parentheses to call the function, but actually what you want to do is not that. I can now source init.lua, and that was also wrong. I can source init.lua, and it looks like it's working correctly now. So if I hit Command or Control P, now I am doing find files, which is unbelievable. This is great. Telescope is amazing. And when you find files, you can fuzzily type what you're looking for, and I'm in. Isn't that great? Now there's one more I like to do, and that is live grep, which allows us to grep throughout our project. I set it to leader FG, which for me is going to be space. I didn't even set my leader yet. So vim.g.map leader needs to be set to space. So now if I source this file, and types to that name is, and when you find files, you can fuzzily type, and that is going to be space. I didn't even set my leader yet. So now I am live grepping throughout my project. I can type lazy, and look, these are all of the results from me searching for lazy. Awesome. We're getting really cool stuff here. Okay, cool. So now we're getting a lot of cool functionality out of our Neovim config. The next thing I want to install is a package. So now we're searching for lazy project. I can pull and space. I didn't even set my leader yet. So vim.g.time. Okay, cool. So that is amazing for doing a package that provides indenting, and that package way to use the interface for tree that why say and then we want they build this to our tuple here for our plugins. It is this, and it comes with one to add pieces that lets us our tuple here for our plug. now to our list of plugins that tree sitter get run here, but I'm sure let's go to our init.lua file using Telescope. Pretty cool. And let's configure tree sitter for our purposes. So from the docs, what we want to do is require Neovim tree sitter configs. So very similar to how we do cat Puchin or Telescope, we want to have a local variable, and we want to call require nvim tree sitter configs. So now in config, we can call stuff like setup. And this setup function is going to give us plenty of control over things within tree sitter. We can say ensure installed, and that is a tuple that will include certain things. I'm going to do Lua and JavaScript. And what this will do is it'll ensure that the parsers for these languages are installed in tree sitter. You can also set it to sync install, highlight, indent, which is what we want. We want highlighting and indenting. We want both of these to be enabled because this will give us both highlighting and indenting, obviously. I typed something incorrect. I believe that's right. Yes, I missed a comma. Whoops. Okay, so now tree sitter has installed JavaScript because we say ensure installed for Lua and JavaScript. And tree sitter also has Lua installed. And now that we have set up tree sitter by calling the setup function here for config, we can see that we now have really awesome highlighting, and it looks amazing. So now tree sitter is highlighting our code, it's indenting it, and